that style.
He's the father of that style. And I even remember, like, but before him, even Marley, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we looked up to those cats, you know what I'm saying?
So you guys are in Detroit, straight up. This is, listen to these dudes saying, this is what we need to do. This is...
Well, before that, like, it kind of started with James Brown. Like, that's kind of how this whole offbeat, on-beat thing started.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, we would sit down and listen to Funky Drummer like 500 times and break the shit down, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this kick is off, or like the feel and all that other shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, the snare is off, like, he plays differently at the 16th bar than he does in the 4th bar.
So this was really being analyzed by that, because Tim kind of got into that.
It was really anal. Right. Super anal, you know what I'm saying? Like, we really studied that shit, and that's how the kind of off-drum shit, the whole swing thing started with listening to James.
Right. Go ahead, Red.
I have a question and a comment for all those. Clyde Stubblefield, all right, James Brown, Funky Drummer.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just, you know, Google that. Also, Google that. I know I just had a question to Waajeed about, because it seems like after you did this, that's when we started hearing a bunch of it. But the Blink 47 beat tapes that you did, Dilla's beats, I was just wondering personally, like, how did all that come about? How did you talk him into getting the beats on the...
Well, it was a difficult conversation. It was. I think this is about, this is when we just came back from the road, I think being out with Tribe. Like, the last Tribe tour, like, Slum Village was like the opening act.
It was Love Movement tour.
Yeah, the Love Movement tour. And I got that on film too. How about that? So I think we were just coming off tour, or we had just come back from Europe or someplace. And, like, you know, in the hood where we was from, like, you know, Coney Gardens is the hood.
Right.
So where we were from, like, we were like the weirdos in the neighborhood, you know what I'm saying? That's why I think that's more or less why we all kind of gelled and kind of worked it out together.
Right.
But we were like the weirdos in the neighborhood. So to go from Europe, you know what I'm saying, where it was like people were singing the lyrics to the songs and going fucking nuts, to come back to Coney Gardens, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we was like the outcast, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I remember telling myself, you know what I'm saying, when we came back, number one, I was going to get serious about beats. And number two, I wanted to create like an outlet for us to be able to have like a hub, you know what I'm saying, for the world to recognize and see who we were.
Right.
So that's when I kind of started my Blink 47 thing. And shortly thereafter is when me and Jay used to go record shopping like every weekend almost. And he would play beats that nobody ever heard. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was like every week it was like a new batch. We used to call them batches because it was kind of like cookies. We used to call them beat batches. So he would play like a new batch of beats that would like fuck my head up, like, you know? Right. And I remember asking him about some of the beats, like, what are you doing with this one? What are you doing with that one? And he's just like, oh, you know, it's practice.
Right.
Man, that's not fucking practice, that's a career. Like, right. Crazy ass beats. And I hope I can use profanity. Fuck it. But I remember asking him about some of the beats, and he's like, man, that shit is crazy. And I was like, what are you gonna do with these beats? And he's like, nothing. So, you know, a light bulb pops up above my head, like, people need to hear this shit. Right. You know what I'm saying? As a fan, as your brother, as a friend, like, people really need to hear this stuff. So that's when I started talking to him about the idea of doing an instrumental album, more or less, so that people can, so we can archive it, number one. Right. That's my biggest thing about all of this, you know. Like, you really got to archive those moments.
Right. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. You got to put it down.
And thank you for this initiative, man. Like, this is really important, man. I want to give it up to y'all.
All right, thank you guys. I just hope we don't get too egg-head in here, because I'll go deep. But the thing is, when we're talking about was this work ethic, which you know, Tip got into, and you know, just that concept that was the 10,000 hour rule, like you have to put that much sort of practice. I think there's this sense of the beats seem so effortless, right? They were stripped down, almost simple if you wanted to knock them. But it really came, I've heard these stories of that, Slum had to do a song a day, or, before Volume 1. But, so one, I think, one, giving an inside story, but I think for Spinna, for you as a producer, was there any of these things like what Waajeed said, when you heard a beat, like, I have to go, I gotta go back to work, like I have to go.
Oh yeah, from DIlla? Oh,
Yeah. It would have that reaction, like I have to step
absolutely.
up.
He was very inspiring because no one was doing anything. No one was making beats like he was. He was sort of like left of center in his thinking process. So it's kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. One of my most challenging and somewhat intimidating moments with DIlla, he called me when he was about to work on the MCA album. He left me a message, actually. I didn't speak to him, but he wanted me to submit beats, and I just kind of like, I was just like, what? Like, are you serious? And I didn't come through because I was kind of like, this is just, he's like the master of his thing.
Right.
I'm like, why is he reaching out to me of all people? I didn't know how to receive it. And that's actually one of my biggest regrets in life, not doing that, because, it would have
messed up on that.
Yeah, big time. But, but he definitely was that guy that like, you listen to and you're like, you're scratching your head and you're like, oh man, yeah, I gotta get busy. I gotta get back to work. He's one of those guys that keeps you on your toes.
Right.
And that's kind of like, part of the reason why I became such a big fan. Like, I just kept buying his records and even like triple copies of stuff just to preserve it, because he just meant that much. His music meant that much to me on another level.
Is there anyone else, and this is for all you guys, any of your sort of colleagues or peers that you think you have that feeling with this? I was getting it before, I just don't really hear people talking about the dude sitting, who would be sitting next to him.
Yeah.
Well, for me,
I'll be trying to chop his head off. Spinna, man, I'll be trying to beat his head in. It's true.
Okay.
It's competitive. It's good though.
it's friendly competition.
Right, friendly competition.
It's friendly competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he killed me on that.
Fever remix.
I approached
Kill me on
I
that.
don't know if you remember that story, but I approached you at Central Park to do that mix. You owe me a mix, by the way.
Okay, all right. Listen, y'all go handle all the contractual stuff in the back.
But as far as like other producers, for me, that I looked up to is the same thing. P-Rock, Premier, Large Professor, Diamond D, the whole Digging in the Craze crew, Prince Paul, Sedgy, Paul C, rest in peace, who kind of like was the backbone of like Ultramagnetic and Super Lover C, Casanova. He was also another pioneer in the sampling technique, but finding rare grooves.
Can you just, and you guys, but you keep, I want to get into this SB12, for those who don't understand, like just this machine, and this sort of school of thought, but, just talk us a little bit about that SP and, and maybe get him, what other actual equipment was he using?